It is Wednesdays with Wilson, and Brian joins us here on Super Talk 99.7. Thanks to the Wellness Institute of Nashville for sponsoring this segment. So, Brian, got a lot that I want to talk about with you today. So let's just...
The list of things to discuss is as long as my arm, and as you know, I have really long arms.
You do have long arms. And
monkey-like. They're ape-like, really.
Yes, absolutely. I wouldn't want to play basketball against you. Donald Trump said this yesterday when he was asked if he'll be going into Chicago with the National Guard.
Well, we're going in. I didn't say when. We're going in. When you lose, look, I have an obligation. This isn't a political thing. We lose when 20 people are killed over the last 2.5 weeks, and 75 are shot with bullets. So let me tell you a little story about a place called D.C., District of Columbia, right here where we are. It's now a safe zone. We have no crime. It's in such great shape. You can go and actually walk with your children, your wife, your husband. You can walk right down the middle of the street. You're not going to be shot. Washington, D.C., is a safe zone right now.
That is Donald Trump, and he's right.
Right.
Washington, D.C. is a safe zone. So, Brian, why wouldn't Chicago want the same thing for their city?
Well, listen, I think, we do need to do something about these major cities that have so much crime. There's no doubt about it. And anything that the president wants to do in a blue city is going to be automatically controversial. But Muriel Bowser, the mayor of D.C., has embraced this and is happy with the results, and it has been a good thing for D.C. As you know, I was recently there, and people that I talked to from across the political spectrum that I know in D.C. were telling me that they got no issue at all with having the National Guard here. And the presence, I want to just say, I don't think it's as big as people think it is, but they're there. There's no doubt about it, but it's not an overwhelming presence. But still, it's had a tremendous result. They've found missing children. They've shut down homeless encampments, which are a real problem in D.C. For some reason, it seems that homeless people are attracted to the nation's capital, and there's a lot of them. And they've worked on that, and they're cracking down, and they've gotten gang members off the streets. And all of this was possible if you just had the resources, which D.C. apparently said it didn't have the will to go forward. The difference between D.C. and Chicago, D.C. is a federal city, constitutionally mandated so, and Chicago is not. And whether or not this will come in violation of posse comitatus, which some people say that the L.A. Incident where they sent a bunch of National Guard to L.A. was a violation of that. So that's going to go to the highest court in the land eventually. Really, when it comes down to it, the two big things that Trump has done with immigration and then trying to make the country safer are things that probably are going to have to be decided by the Supreme Court. And the good news is the Supreme Court has done pretty well by Trump, and most of the stuff that he's gone to the Supreme Court, he's won. However, you got to look at some of this other stuff that's going on and wonder whether or not the Supreme Court will stand by him on this whole thing and allow him to go forward with the stuff in Chicago because of posse comitatus.
But I think for Trump, it's mission accomplished. And here's what I mean by that, is that, number one, all right, we cleaned up Washington, D.C.
Yep.
But number two is he got the Democrats to embrace criminal behavior again.
Every time, this is the brilliance of what Trump is doing. He takes a thing that everybody's in favor of, safe streets in your major metropolitan areas. Who could be possibly against that? It turns out the Democrats are. And so, they have aligned against Trump on all this, and they're going to fight him. And it's a losing proposition for the Democrats. They just can't help themselves.
Well, the interesting thing too, Brian, is that they don't see what Donald Trump is doing. I mean, I think you and I may have talked about this before, but Memphis is in far worse shape than any other city. But Donald Trump decided to go to Chicago. He knows that he would, I don't know about Governor Lee, but, more than likely, perhaps he would have better a better chance of getting the National Guard in Memphis with a conservative state legislature and a Republican governor than he would getting the National Guard in Chicago. So from a political perspective, I see what Donald Trump is doing. So even if it goes to the Supreme Court and he loses, it is, again, still mission accomplished because he got the mayor of Chicago and J.D. Pritzker as well to, again, embrace the chaos of Chicago.
Right.
And they're, in my opinion, it seems like they are gaslighting the American people because, J.D. Pritzker is basically saying, what? 8, 9 deaths over Labor Day weekend and 54 people shot? Where's the crisis?
Well, listen, there is a crisis in Chicago, and there's a crisis in a lot of other major metropolitan areas around this country. For Memphis, though, I mean, one thing that you can look at is that the state is trying to do something in Memphis. So, there is an action going on to try to secure Memphis and make it a safer place. It is a statewide led effort. So maybe Trump feels he doesn't need to go in there. One way or the other, I just think that these kinds of decisions are going to end up before the high court. The high court is going to have to decide this stuff once and for all. I think he's on good standing, but you just have to note, and for the record, that there is a big difference between a federal city.
Yep.
Which is Washington, D.C., and Chicago. So there may be some difficulty there for him. I hope not, because it really needs to be done.
All right, Brian, I got 3 things that we got to talk about. All right. We got to talk about the 2 that I just mentioned.
Right.
And also Donald Trump accusing Xi Jinping, Kim Jong-un, and Vladimir Putin of conspiring against America. So those are the 3. So real quick, let's do Space Command going to Huntsville. President Trump yesterday, it was interesting because one of the things that he said was, right now it's in Colorado Springs. He wants to move it. One of the things the president said was, well, the problem I have with Colorado is the way that they do their elections because they do mail-in ballots only, which is actually not true. He got that a little bit wrong. But was this decision, do you think this was the best decision for Space Command, or was it purely a political situation?
No, I think this is really political, and But hey, listen, how cool is it that Alabama's going to be the basic home base for Space Command? Really, literally within the sound of my voice right now.
Yep.
I mean, we reach all the way down to Huntsville, and this Redstone facility is really something. It will be a logical move, but you're taking it away from a blue state and you're giving it to a red state, and I think there's some politics involved in that. Regardless, he has, I think, the authority to do it, and it's exciting. Maybe when they do this, they can find a missile to put beside the road so that we can see the missile when we go to the beach. That's what I missed the missile.
Do you know that when because I talked about this on Red Eye Radio, do you know how many people from across the nation said, can they bring the missile back?
Yeah, bring that missile back. I miss it.
Where is the missile? Where did the actual missile go?
They took it down because it was a Saturn 1B, one of the smaller Saturn rockets that were used in the space program when we were going to the moon. And it just had deteriorated to the point where it was dangerous, so they had to dismantle it. There have been some talk about bringing another missile out there, but we need to do that. When you were going down to the beach or you're going down to Birmingham for some reason, it was sort of like, hey, look, we're almost to Tennessee now. It was a wonderful thing. Everybody loved it. And I was very irritated when they had to take it down. But I think they had a good reason for doing it one way or the other. I'd like to see it back as well. But congratulations to Alabama for securing the Space Command. That will be a very cool thing. By the way, did you know that my father-in-law worked at the Huntsville Missile Facility back in the day, way, way back, and he was at work for security there when he was in the military, and actually provided security for Werner von Braun when he was there. So
no kidding.
Yeah, very cool. Isn't
wow,
it?
That is neat.
Yeah.
All right, real quick. The Donald Trump takes out the drug runners coming from Venezuela. My favorite story of the day. He obliterates them, their boat, and there are supposedly 11 illegal alien gang members on their way to America with a bunch of drugs.
Yep, I'm for this, and I think we should do more of it. We need to declare this drug running enterprises of the cartels to be, a national security threat. They are a national security threat. And we should do to the drug runners what we do to other national security threats. If we see them, we take them out. And this is a good start, is what I'm saying. Make them wonder. Make them keep looking over their shoulder the whole time. Is there going to be a missile come down from on high and smoke us while we're trying to deliver these drugs? I love it. I want more of it. And I think, quite frankly, we should, just tell Mexico, if you're not going to straighten it out over there, we're going to come in. Now, this particular boat came from Venezuela, but a lot of our problems still are still located in Mexico, and we need to do something about it. And I would just tell Mexico, you fix it or we're gonna. And we have, I think, the authority to do so.
Yeah, and Marco Rubio, for the record, he is in Mexico, I think it's today. And he is going to speak to the leaders as we speak this week. And that is exactly what he's trying to do. He's trying to talk to the president of Mexico, and he is trying to get more cooperation to keep the drugs out. All right, real quick. Xi Jinping, big military parade in China. He's watching the military parade with all of this incredible Chinese technology, by the way, including a laser that they say could dismantle electronics and blind pilots. So Xi Jinping is there with Kim Jong-un from North Korea and Vladimir Putin of Russia, obviously. And so Donald Trump puts on Truth Social asking Xi to please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America.
Right. These kinds of parades, you have to take them with a grain of salt. They want to make it look like they are a powerful entity, and China's nothing to sneeze at. Neither is Russia, really, even though we've turned out and seen in Ukraine that their military is not all that in a bag of chips. So they are not the fearsome thing that we thought it once was. But when you look at these parades, you have to understand some of those things are mock-ups.
Yeah.
Some of them are not real.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of falsehoods that are being presented here.
They're like a shell.
Yeah, it's like a shell. It's a lot of that stuff is not real. A lot of it is aspirational. Mm-hmm. It's something that you have to take with a grain of salt. Now, that's not to say they don't have some technology we should be concerned about, and they're certainly building ships like crazy, far outstripping what we're trying to do in this country. China is our greatest, I think, international threat, and we have to take it seriously. But you do have to look at those things with a grain of salt.
So do you think Trump was right or wrong to post that, basically, I don't know, directly interacting with Xi Jinping in a manner that is, clearly, I mean, you got CNN that is freaking out over this thing. I like what the president did. I'm just going to, cards on the table. I love what the president did because you're right, Brian. It adds to that air of unpredictability.
Well, basically he says, look, hey, how y'all doing over there? He's just noting that they're there and not panicked about it. And I think that's the thing that he's saying. Hey, have your little parade. It's all good.
Knock yourselves out. Tell everybody I said hey.
That's
all right, Brian, thank you very much. Always great to have you on. And
my pleasure.
I'll talk to you again soon. Senator Bill Hagerty is joining us. Senator, always great to have you on. First thing I've got to ask is with the National Guard troops in Washington, D.C., you are there. You're on the ground on this Wednesday. What has the impact been for somebody like you who spends a lot of time in Washington, D.C.?
Well, Dan, it certainly seems a lot more calm. I spoke with my staff yesterday and just asked them to raise their hands if they felt more safe. Every hand shot up. It's really just amazing that we ever allowed our nation's capital to get to the state that it is in. If you recall, Dan, it was about 2 years ago when the D.C. City Council, in their infinite wisdom, decided it would be appropriate to lower the penalties for major felonies like murder, carjacking, and property theft. I actually chair the Financial Services and General Government Committee of the Appropriations Committee, and that puts me sadly, in charge of part of D.C.'s budget. So I used a very little-known procedure called a resolution of disapproval and disapproved the D.C. City Council's move. I mean, this is in the middle of a crime wave, and they decided it would be a good signal to lower the penalties. Absolutely the wrong thing to do. The White House said they would veto it. Joe Biden threatened to veto me immediately. And I kept telling the reporters who would ask, Joe Biden ought to poll this, because defunding the police isn't working too well for the Democrats. Crime's not popular in America. You know what? By the time I brought it to the floor of the United States Senate, Joe Biden flipped that afternoon, and I got 88 senators to join me. We passed it. We stopped D.C. We blocked them from lowering the penalties. But what we couldn't do is force them to enforce the law. That's what President Trump has stepped in to take care of. He's actually proving that if you're present, if you're here, if you're on the streets, if you're not defunding the police, but you're supporting them, good things can happen. So I think that the city is in the process of transforming. As you know, there's beautiful architecture here. There's a lot of great history. I want people from Tennessee to feel comfortable when they come to visit me and come to visit their capital. And President Trump has been able to put in place in very short order the type of discipline necessary to actually allow D.C. to bring its streets under control.
Senator Bill Hagerty is joining us now. Senate, Congress back in session. The deadline for government funding is September 30th. So my question is, what are the major sticking points, and do you predict another continuing resolution?
Well, I think the biggest sticking point is Chuck Schumer. He is basically, on a collision course with destiny here, and the destiny meaning the burial of the Democrat Party. He seems to be calling for a shutdown. His base says they should just shut the government down in protest of Donald Trump's efforts to actually find means of cost control. I think you may have heard that there's another rescission package that's been offered, a $4.9 billion package of wasteful spending that's been identified at the U.S. Department of State and USAID that has been proposed to basically not spend this money between now and the end of September. What we've seen is Chuck Schumer go apoplectic over this and say that he wants to shut the government down if we don't spend this money on wasteful things that have been identified. For example, $500 million going to the United Nations for programs that actually work against America's interest. You've got funds going to global LGBTQ awareness, whatever that is, climate resistance in Honduras. It goes on and on. Yet Chuck Schumer is saying he's willing to shut the government down over this because we're not going to continue to make the wasteful spending that seemed to be the Democrats' priority. We're not going to continue to do that. So I think that Schumer is the biggest question mark here. Is he going to continue to pursue this course, this reckless course, I think, of shutting the government down just to make a point that he hates Donald Trump and he hates the Republican Party?
Well, one of the things, is we talk about government shutdowns, and again, the deadline is September 30th, is who's to blame for the government shutdown? It always seems to be like, the Democrats will try to pin it on the Republicans and vice versa. And so I guess the question is, if Schumer does that, just strictly from a political standpoint, could the Democrats and people like Chuck Schumer, could they pay politically for shutting down the government over issues that have proven unpopular with the American people?
Well, it's always a blame game. The thing that the Democrats have working in their advantage, Dan, is the fact that the mainstream media always toe the line. They'll always do whatever the Democrats say, and they'll always do their best to try to make Republicans look bad. But this situation is one where I think it is crystal clear. Republicans have been moving through the process. As I mentioned, I'm on the Appropriations Committee. We have been moving our appropriation bills through the process. Chuck Schumer never did that. So we're in a much better position now to actually, bring a package to the floor. Let us do it. Chuck Schumer will try, again, every procedural delay, though, to make that not happen.
Well, the Senator, we'll see what Chuck Schumer ultimately ends up doing. There's been a lot of delays going on with Donald Trump and all of the nominees that need to have Senate confirmation. So I see that the Republicans and Donald Trump, they are looking to change some rules in the confirmation process. And also, the president is attacking something called blue slips. So, can you shed some light on what rules need to be changed for this backlog of 140 nominees have been, basically, are they put on hold or what's going on?
Oh, there's more than that. There have been, I think, less than 140 that have actually gotten through, Dan. It's a record low. And I'm the poster child for why we need to change the rules. As you know, I served in the Trump administration, in the first Trump administration. They invoked a procedural mechanism, Chuck Schumer did this, called cloture on me. I had to look it up. I didn't know what cloture meant. Cloture means that it's a required 30 hours of debate on the Senate floor to debate a controversial item. In this case, it was my nomination to be U.S. ambassador to Japan. Was it controversial? Well, I would have thought there'd been senators down there debating right and left for 30 hours. No, not a single senator came to the floor. Schumer just used this to hold up the business of the Senate for 30 hours. I wound up getting confirmed 86-12. That's not a controversial outcome, as you know. Mm-hmm. But it cost me 4 months. 4 months when Kim Jong-un was launching rockets over Japan, 4 months when the Chinese were in the East China Sea, the South China Sea. When I got there, we finally got that calmed down. We finally moved things along. But Chuck Schumer was willing to make the United States and its allies suffer just to frustrate Donald Trump's efforts to govern. And it's gotten even worse in this administration. So we need to change the rules. We need to stop this cloture process. We're working on a number of options right now to address this. But this has been absolutely ridiculous. The Schumer shutdown that is taking place on our administration is unprecedented. And we've got to change the rules, I think, to stop allowing Schumer to misuse the procedural rules of the Senate to this end. Again, his goal, obviously, is to keep Trump from ever being able to govern because he wants to keep Trump from putting his team on the field. To the blue slips, that's a different issue. That's not a rule. It doesn't require a rule change. It's just a custom here in the Senate, and the custom being that you want to clear with the home state senators the people that you're going to put in position for judges and for U.S. attorneys. That's been a system of protocol, if you will, here. It's been an accommodation that helps home state senators have some influence over what happens. Schumer, again, is using this to block whomever Trump puts up. I was talking with President Trump about this just 2 days ago. One of my friends, one of his, Jay Clayton, is up for the 2nd District in New York. Jay is one of the finest attorneys in America, complete Boy Scout. Schumer is using the blue slip process, to hold him up. Trump said to me, if I can't get Jay Clayton through, I'm never going to get anybody through. We need to just blow this up. And I agree with him. This is ridiculous. It means that we'll never put a U.S. attorney or a judge into a blue state as long as Chuck Schumer and the Democrats are basically using this to resist again. The American public didn't vote for this. They don't want to see it, and I think it's time to change it.
Senator, I know that one of your passions is foreign policy and what is going on the world stage. I've got a question for you coming up about a Truth Social post that the president directed towards one Xi Jinping, and I know that neither one of us are fans of China. In the news overnight, I'm sure you probably saw it, but you've got Xi Jinping having his big military parade with, all of their military apparatus. With him was Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin. And so clearly a sign of unity amongst America's enemies. And so Donald Trump posts this on Truth Social, asking Xi Jinping to please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think what he's trying to do is point out the fact, the ingratitude, if you will, of Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party. Were it not for the U.S. involvement, World War II would not have been brought to the resolution that it was. Japan would be controlling China right now. And I think they have a very short memory when it comes to the fact that the United States has delivered more independence, more freedom, and more prosperity to the world than anybody else ever has imagined. And what you've got are, this gang of hoodlums that are getting together, led by Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un. The Iranian, leader was there as well. I think Reagan called this part of the axis of evil. They're all there conspiring, I'm sure, as President Trump said. They ought to remember the fact that were it not for the United States, China would not be in a position to host this in any regard. They wouldn't be there as a nation.
Senator, let me ask you one last question here. I know that our time is limited, but give me your opinion on Donald Trump taking out that Venezuelan drug boat that was making its way towards our shores, taking out apparently a bunch of drugs and 11 drug-dealing Venezuelans, probably gang members. Your thoughts on this? You got some people in the news saying, oh, this is a major escalation. And I would say, well, it's about time.
Dan, we're losing 3,000 children a year in Tennessee to drug overdoses. Where is it coming from? It's coming from China through places like Venezuela and their partners across the Mexican border. It's coming by water. We've got the border secure. Now what they're doing is they're using the waterways. President Trump is not going to tolerate it. He said it. He imposed 25% tariffs on both Canada and Mexico to try to stop it. He's imposed maximum tariffs on China to try to stop it. And now he's taken to the waterways to stop these criminals from killing our children. So it is about time. I agree with you, and I think the American public can see right through the Democrats squealing. This isn't a major escalation. This is actually an effort to address this while Joe Biden stood alongside and watched literally hundreds of thousands of Americans die to drug overdoses because he was willing to do that to allow the border to be flooded by all of these people that came in.
All right, Senator, as always, great to have you on, and looking forward to speaking to you again soon. It is coming up on 7:50 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Text line, by the way, is very, very busy. Going to get to some of those as well as the morning continues to progress. Now, you've heard Joan talking about the release of some Epstein documents. We've had some movement on that. I spoke about that overnight on Red Eye Radio, and I love that we are seemingly seeing some movement on this. And one of the things that they're trying to do there in the House of Representatives is they're trying to get a vote on releasing all of the documents, all of the files, all of the pictures. You've got Ro Khanna and also Thomas Massie, Democrat and a Republican respectively, trying to get this vote passed. And if so, then it is apparently binding, and they would be required to release all of these documents. And so coming up, and that's happening in the House of Representatives, so coming up, I'm going to speak to Scott Desjardins. I'm going to find out what his opinion is from the congressman. So all that and a whole lot more straight ahead. You know who was on that Abby Phillips show with Scott Jennings? I think this was yesterday. You know who was on there?
Who?
Ben Shapiro.
Oh, yeah, I heard this.
So a couple of things. Number one, and I got to move it over. So you know that Shapiro, he's now got like a stash, like a mustache, and I don't know, but it kind of looks like what people would call a porn stash.
Porn stash, yeah.
I mean, look at the Super Talk TV. That kind of looks like I love Ben Shapiro. I really do. I have the utmost respect for him. I think he looks good in the mustache. It just, it looks like one of those. But anyway, he had a great point as he is talking to Abby Phillip about the fact that Donald Trump has the ability, and I was speaking to Brian Wilson about this too, Donald Trump has the ability to be like the puppet master for the Democrats. It is amazing. And so I want to play this piece of audio. They're talking about Chicago, and they're talking about, Donald Trump, and is he going to send the National Guard to Chicago, so on and so forth. But listen to what Ben Shapiro had to say about all of this, because I think it's, he's really punctuating what we've all said.
Minimum. And you saw the Obama administration declare national emergencies, something like 12 national emergencies under President Obama, something like 9 under Joe Biden. Now you've had President Trump declare a wide variety of national emergencies. This isn't a unilateral problem. I think it is a bilateral problem. With that said, I think that we should separate a few strands here. One is the legal that Eli was talking about. One of the other things here, though, is I think what Van was referring to, which is President Trump does have a habit of wrong-footing his political opponents in a unique way on this sort of stuff. There were 574 murders in Chicago last year. And you can make the argument, I think a plausible argument, that National Guard troops should not be on the ground enforcing crime, both legally and just as a matter of general policy. But if the position you end up taking is that there is no serious crime emergency in Chicago on a rhetorical level, not on a legal level, on a rhetorical level, or you make the case that actually crime in Chicago just isn't that big of a deal, which seems to be the mistake that many Democratic politicians are making right now, Trump is going to win that battle all day long.
Yes.
I mean, I hear you, but I also think there is the rhetorical level, which we could focus on. But I mean, I also want to focus on the reality, like the actual things that are happening.
And what's interesting, Joan, is she's kind of trying to refute Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
And when she says, I want to focus on the reality, well, that's what Ben Shapiro is saying.
Exactly, yes.
What Donald Trump is saying is that the reality is that what is going on in Chicago is people are dying. And Donald Trump wants to save lives, and it would appear that Let's Go Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, and J.D. Pritzker, the governor for Illinois, they don't seem to care that there's a lot of people that are dying, and a lot of those are black people. And yet nobody is, rising in the streets and saying that their policies of not wanting to stop crime is racist. They should say it, all say it, but apparently the media and folks there in Chicago simply will not.